Welcome to Everything But the Tip, the podcast that bucks the trend of the mainstream golf content being churned out by the masses. Presented by the co-founders of Smart Golf and Fitness, we're on a mission to guide golfers towards genuine improvement. No swing tips, no shortcuts, we're anti-instant gratification. Join us as we navigate the complexities of the game, offering insights on how to truly excel in golf by embracing the challenges and breaking free from the usual quick fix mentality.
Do you feel like you have any guys that either, let's say, not necessarily don't get better, but don't reach the potential that you think there is for them?
Yes, of course. I mean, I would say one, it's really, really hard to objectively say what someone's potential is. I think that's always a little bit of unknown. And that's where I think, as cliche as it is to sound, you want to focus on the process, right? I can tell you that there are strategies and tactics which will better aid in you reaching whatever that potential ceiling is. And then there are strategies and tactics that obviously won't. So if we're doing a really good job here as a coach, we're essentially trying to teach our students how to spend time. So if I do have time to allocate towards getting better, what should I do? What does deliberate practice actually look like? What is the best way I could spend time? Should I go to the range and beat balls bucket after bucket? Right?
Probably not.
Should I not do anything? Of course not. But so yeah, I mean, I guess it's a good question, because our goal here is not just to help people play better. It is to help them play their best and to reach whatever their true potential is. But I say this to my students all the time. I go, listen, my goal, whether you're working with me, short term or forever, what I'm trying to educate and teach you on is practices and habits that are with you forever. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you have a good foundation, like obviously I come from a fitness background, like if you have a good foundation of exercises that you know are successful, like you can do a lot of damage in a good way, right? And I think that can very much be the same with golf. Like having good, practice discipline, I should say, will get you a lot further than trying to find the next magic bullet.
So I think it was James Clear who said this. Was he Atomic Habits? Is that the correct author? So what do we say here? Success isn't a finish line to be crossed, and this is paraphrasing, but it's a lifestyle to be lived, right?
Yes.
So reaching your potential, I would just say it's a system of processes and best practices that will at least give you the best possible chance to discover whatever that may be. So, I mean, reaching your potential is a lifelong journey. So I don't know. I wouldn't want to undermine any one of my students and say they've reached their potential. So I can say right here.
That's a very good point.
I don't think any of my students have reached their potential. And I don't think that's not because we're doing a good job. I just think it's not a finish line to be crossed.
I would agree with that. I would actually say, like, some of my best students, like, and the most successful ones, don't even necessarily have the most drastic swing changes. Obviously, we've got the guys that are going from swinging 10 degrees out to in to hitting nice little tight draws. But, like, some of my best guys, their swing looks a little bit better, a little bit different, but their ball striking is just through the roof because they found the 1 or 2 or 3 drills that, they can kind of hold on to and know produce better ball striking long term. And they just do them over and over again. And they just get really, really good at them.
Yeah, I tell my clients all the time, if we're introducing the appropriate drill at the right time, I say, listen, the good thing about this is whether you get all of this structural movement that I want or even a millimeter of it, your timing's going to be easier for you. Therefore, you'll be better
100%.
at golf, right?
I had a guy shoot 68 the other day. Sent me a video from the range, literally 12 minutes after his round wrapped up. And he's like, it looks the same, but I shot 68, so I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, I've got even a guy today in a lesson. Am I super ecstatic with the development of a swing pattern? No. Over the time that we've spent together, no, not at all. And quite honestly, when he sends me text messages or comes into my lesson the following week and he's like, yeah, no, I'm playing great. I played fantastic. And his handicap's dropped, I don't know, a lot. I forget for this particular one, but I want to say 8 strokes. But you look at visually on video, if you were to compare his first swing to where he currently stands, is there change of course? Is it, oh my gosh, substantial? Not in this particular case. Doesn't mean that it doesn't happen, but this guy's almost 60 years old.
For sure.
You've got to take that into consideration. But what he has discovered is by practicing in the manner in which we've required of him and is staying true and consistent and committed to the recipe, if you will, that I have given him, it has resulted in better golf. And I think people just feel good about like having a plan, right? They know what they're supposed to do. That alone helps with the psychology and the confidence of it.
For sure. And it obviously does help to get a couple quick wins. Like, I think this is what separates the guys who, long-term excel and the guys who don't is I could give 2 guys the same exact drill for the same exact swing issue. They have the same, starting point, whatever. And the guy who, shanks his first 3 shots, but looks at the video or looks at whatever TrackMan numbers are important for that particular drill and sees that we're moving in the right direction and sticks with it, versus the guy who hits 3 shanks and says this drill sucks and ditches it right away.
Which is all way too common. And probably I would say the majority.
That's golfers everywhere, right? That's why we're doing this
Most
podcast in the first place, right?
That's why Smart Golf and Fitness exists.
Again, that's why with all the information that's out today, like, you think the average golfer would be like a 4 index, and it's still the same as it's been for probably 30 years. Yeah,
that comment statistic's always been. I've always been curious on that one. I think I think it's tough to quantify. Maybe there's a lot of research out there that I don't know about that know they're doing a really good job of that, because there's things called handicap systems. But I think there's so many outliers with the fact that that's taking into account every beginner, everyone that's first, grabbing a club for the first time. And the reason I struggle to wrap my head around that is I just look at inside of our walls, and I get that it's a small piece of the pie, but our guys are not only getting better, they're getting way better.
They are, but we are 2 locations in Chicago, and there are a lot of golfers throughout the world. And
I also don't think we can ignore the fact, because we've witnessed it, is guys get better, and they're not always extremely consistent at putting their lower scores in.
I can name a couple guys.
So there's a little bit of a strategery there, if you will, in order to become well prepared for their member guests that summer.
Well, there's that, but let's also think about the guys that that don't come here. The high school buddies who you've been playing golf with for the last 20 years, who are going to go out and shoot between 92 and 96 every single time they play, and they will never get better and never get worse.
I'm going to have 12 beers in the process.
Well, that too.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, you also have to think with the handicap thing, like, there are also a lot of beginners that aren't keeping handicaps. So,
No, listen, it's something we're going to talk about here shortly, but we live in America, right? We're all about instant gratification. That's what we've been conditioned to do. The one thing I can't wrap my head around is how golf ends up being that sport where you've got these, adults working 40 to 60 hour a week jobs sitting in a chair, wondering why they can't do what these elite athletes can do.
I had to have
That's mind blowing to me.
It is. I had to have this like heart-to-heart conversation with one of my guys the other day. He's literally like a heart surgeon. I'm like, if Rory McIlroy practiced heart surgery 2 hours a week, would you want to be on his operating table? He's like, no, of course not.
Yeah, it's insane.
It makes no sense.
Music's the same way, and I think honestly we could probably do a whole show on that. But music has so many parallels into what it takes to be a world-class performer and whatever instrument you've chosen to commit to. But the reality is, it's like if you Google how to fix a slice, you're going to get 500,000 to 1 million videos on YouTube. You look at Amazon. I always, make fun of my wife for this because she's an expert, but you can order a package in the morning and you'll have it delivered in the afternoon. That's crazy. That hasn't been happening that long. And then you look at Netflix, which, from a convenience standpoint, guys are used to, my marketing professor used to always say, hey, listen, if you're going to develop a service, you're going to develop a product, all right? You got to make it faster, and you got to make it easier for people. Time and convenience, time and convenience, time and convenience. He said it every single class, and it stuck with me, and it's true, right? So you look at Netflix, you can sit down when it's convenient for you to binge watch whatever season of Yellowstone you want. Any Yellowstone fans out there?
Yellowstone's on Peacock.
Well, whatever. You get the point. But the point is, it's, for whatever reason, and we can dive deeper into this. Why do you think golf ended up being that sport? Like, people don't approach music like that. They don't approach karate. If they know if they're learn an instrument, if they're gonna pick up karate, they know that they're in for the long haul. But for whatever reason with golf, they don't look at it the same way. Why do you think that is?
Honestly, I think it's kind of the same way that some people get into fitness the wrong way. It's because it's very measurable. This is my opinion. Like, you can go out and you can say, I shot 104 today. Whereas the guys who I know that get better at golf, and even this is a journey that I've gone on myself, is like, there are very different ways to shoot 75, 85, 105. Like, the people who get it and understand that their process is improving, they're like, hey, I shot 80 today, but I also had 3 putts. Like, I could have easily shot 77, versus the people who shot 80 and buried a bunch of 40 footers. A lot of people just look at the number and they don't understand that, like, one is probably better than the other long term, and you actually are seeing the gains. And I think other sports and things like that, you're going with a team, you're developing with people, and you're actually playing more head to head and not against a specific number.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. I could also see that when you watch golf on TV, you watch the guys
don't get me started
at their best.
Or do get me started on that.
I'm just saying, when you watch them at their best, what do they do about? What do they make this? They make the sport look super easy, right? And you start to look at, you've got your exceptions out there. You've got your John Daly's of the world. You've got the Walrus back in the day. You've got individuals that from the outside, aren't your stereotypical, I'm in a great shape and I'm an athlete. For so long, and even today, people are still willing to debate it. Golf's not a sport.
That being said, though, if you look at what John Daly is able to do, like the flexibility and stuff that he has, like, that dude moves probably better than 90% of the people that walk in the door.
You don't got to convince me that. That's just called ignorance. They're not looking at that. They're saying, hey, he looks like me. And look how good he is.
John Daly is one of the few people who I think was a legitimate freak athlete. Like, it's another one of those books. I think it might have been Talent is Overrated, but everybody's talked about the 10,000 hour rule, all that good stuff. But they did find that, like, for the most part, nobody put in, the appropriate, required number of hours of deliberate practice and didn't at least achieve some level of success. But on the flip side, nobody did achieve success without a certain number of hours of deliberate practice put in. And there's just no way around it.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And I think, people just got to acknowledge that there's exceptions to every rule. But I also, I like to talk about this. I look at just the golf industry as a whole. And, when I look at, the individuals that sit there from an outsider looking in and say, you know what, I'm going to go sign up for a golf lesson, and, I'm going to learn how to play golf. I'm going to go, I got a tournament coming up this weekend. I'm going to call up the local pro, and I'm going to go take a lesson. To me, that's mind-blowing. That's the equivalent of saying, hey, I've got a musical this weekend. So I'm going to go get a flute from the store, a cheap one, and I'm going to go take a lesson before the musical. And I'm going to expect to be able to perform. No one does that. No one's ever done that. No one, I don't think, ever will do that. And don't get me wrong, performing in a musical is very different than trying to break 100 on the golf course. But there's 100% some parallels there. So it's like, where the hell did these expectations come from? And for me, I think the industry has to take a little bit of responsibility on this. Number one, that for so long, if you wanted to sign, you can still do this. If you want to sign up for a 30-minute one-off golf lesson, you can. If you want to sign up for a 1-hour one-off golf lesson, you can. You look at, commercials on the Golf Channel. Hey, buy this $800 driver, cure your slice, and hit it 40 yards farther. Or, hey, look at this brand new gadget training aid. Fix your slice or become a pure ball striker, whatever the promise is. There's all this surrounding noise that are creating this perception that there's this quick fix or magic pill. So for me, like, and I think the golf industry should take responsibility for these false expectations, because this is a line I say all the time, is I say for the individuals that decided that, hey, I want to pick up this game as a hobby, or I want to try to get better. For the ones that don't get better, and for the ones that don't pick it up as a hobby, it's not because they weren't capable. It's because they gave up. They threw in the towel too soon. And they gave up because they weren't patient enough. And they weren't patient enough because expectations did not match reality. And I don't 100% blame them, because listen, like, if I'm a consumer and there's a service or a product that's out there that is, supposed to deliver, for example, golf instruction, 1 hour lesson, I process that as, hey, if I take that and sign up, I should leave better. It's all relative. Now, not everyone has this mindset, but you'd be shocked on how large of a population that do. Sign up for that lesson with the expectation to walk away with some sort of substantial improvement, and I get that that's relevant or relative, and everyone has their own definition, but it's just insane, and that's how it's looked for so long. And why? Well, we live in a world of instant gratification, time and convenience. It's convenient for me to sign up for that lesson once. From a time standpoint, I only want to commit 1 hour. But I'm sorry, I will argue this to the grave. Golf has one of the steepest learning curves of all sports. And the fact that someone would approach it any differently than any other sport, or even music for that matter, is just, it's a recipe for failure. And it scares me, to be honest with you, for those beginners that have decided to pick up this game, and they're, perusing the internet, looking on YouTube, looking at Instagram, signing up for that 1 hour golf lesson, and they're not having all these preliminary proactive conversations to get their mind right. It scares me, because ends up what happening is they end up going and taking a golf lesson and, not getting the results that they would expect. And very shortly thereafter, it's like, golf's way too hard for me. And it's not for me. That coach isn't for me. I don't think I can do this. And then we have one more person walking away from the game. And that's for me, that's, what do they say? I don't measure my success on my winners. I measure them on my losers. Well, because there are so few.
Well, there you go. One of the things I've been kind of harping on lately, as far as the difficulty of golf, is like, we're very
Hey, you just made me think about something about difficulty of golf. Would you agree that there's this movement or this wave or a part of the industry that is reluctant to paint the true picture of golf as being hard, one, meaning that they want to make it seem like it's actually not that hard, aka easy? And do you think can you see why that would be potentially dangerous?
Yes. I mean, if you had two people standing in front of you and one told you it was going to be really hard or one told you it was going to be really easy, like, who are you going to go take the lesson from, right?
Oh, I get it from a marketing standpoint. Here's my rebuttal.
But yes, I think I know what you're saying. Is like, if you go in thinking it's going to be easy and you hit any sort of roadblock, you are going to have a bad time.
100%.
So, like, we're very fortunate that nowadays, like, we have TrackMan and all sorts of launch monitors available to us. Like, I have to constantly remind people that TrackMan is measuring all this stuff in tenths of a degree. Like, you can't see a tenth of a degree, and you're trying to, hit that driver at 100 miles an hour, 110 miles an hour for some of these guys that are in here 120 miles an hour, and you have to have that face controlled probably within a 2-degree window to actually get the ball to go where you want it to go. Like, 2 degrees is 1/3 of a second on a clock. Like, that's so unbelievably small, and people are like, why can't I do this consistently? It's like, it
100%. And that's where, for me, the reason I think it's dangerous to be like, hey, no, it's the golf's not that hard. It's easy. Well, what I find is that, for me specifically as well, like, would you rather fail at something deemed easy or fail at something that's known to be hard? Guys, we all have egos. This is an emotional game. It's an emotional process to learn it. Let's not shy away from that. When I get a beginner and they come in for their interview, for their preliminary assessment, obviously there's not a lot of questions to be asked because they don't really have a history with golf. But I sit there, I look them in the eye, and I say, hey, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. But these first few lessons, they're going to suck. They're not going to be very fun. Luckily, some people say I have a sense of humor and can turn some unpleasant experiences to not so pleasant. So we'll have fun. I'll do my best to make you laugh. It's not going to be miserable from that standpoint. But listen, I'm going to put your hands on the club in a weird way that you might say, hey, holy cow, this does not feel good at all. And that's okay. And you might say, you know what? Actually, no, it doesn't feel that bad. But I'm going to tell you more times than not, it's going to feel weird. And then I'm going to put you in a golf posture, and your lower back's probably going to start acting up. And you're like, oh, man, I'm getting tired. This is awkward. Do people really stand like this? And then another part of this that's just not so exciting, I've got to teach you about the anatomy of a golf club. I've got to tell you what a shaft is, what a club head is, what a toe is, a heel. And I'm going to quiz you on that. So that way, for that reason, so when we move forward and I'm using this terminology, we can expedite that process as I don't have to continue to inform you on what I actually said. But for what I found is what ends up happening when you're proactive on those conversations and you're like, listen, what lies ahead? You're gonna be uncomfortable. You're gonna fail. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna feel hopeless at times. What I find is this: it's uncanny how often the response is, "This ain't that bad. This ain't nearly what you explained it to be." And at that point, I hear that and I laugh and I'm like, "When?"
Yeah.
Right? Because if you don't have that conversation, but it's the exact same purpose, how much you want to bet it's like everything that I just talked about is actually what's being communicated, right? There's a way you can be honest about where the bar is, about how high it is, and how steep that learning curve is, without intimidating and scaring them. Be like, listen, we all went through it. I can relate to. A lot of people went through this, but there's a reason that a lot of people that pick up golf don't continue on to make it a hobby because that learning curve is so steep. But they weren't surrounded with the appropriate supporting cast to help hold their hand, if you will, to get them through that. And that's what we're here for. Can you relate to that?
I can relate to that a lot.
Do you remember being a beginner?
I do remember. Actually, I was actually just thinking about this earlier today, now that I think about it. I do remember, like, my first, like, super pure golf shot that I hit. And this is when I was really, really young. It was with a little wiffle ball and a plastic club.
Oh, that doesn't count.
Oh, hold on though. But I remember hitting it so good and being like, that feels pretty awesome. Now, I hit a lot of bad shots after that. That was a high I was riding for a long time, but it could not have gone more than 30 feet. But I hit over the fence at my great-grandparents' house, and just knowing lot sizes, it was probably about 30 feet that it went.
How old are you?
Really young.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Got it.
But
so we weren't using words like pure.
No, we were not.
Okay.
I don't think that was in the golf vernacular at that point. But it has been a much steeper learning curve after that. I remember, I've had days where I've shot 84 and 69 back to back. And it's like one day I wanted to throw my clubs in the river, and the other day I'm like, there should be a U.S. Open qualifier coming up.
Well, I have Oakley. He's 9, or he'll be 9 this summer. I tell him all the time. I go, man, golf's a hate-love relationship, and the ones that can navigate that hate-love the best are the ones that end up becoming the best. And I'm like, one day you're going to go in and put a ton of practice in and hit the ball really well and feel like you're really prepared for the next round, and you're going to go out there and play very poorly, right? And then on the flip side of that, you might not prepare one week and go into a round and absolutely crush it and question what the best strategy is for you. And, that we can go down so many rabbit holes with that. But
that's just what people have to really remember is, like, nothing is permanent. Like, I've had days where I've hit it awful on the range. I've gone out and hit it great on the golf course. Mm-hmm. I've also had days where, like, I'm hitting every single flag stick on the range and I couldn't hit a fairway to save my life on the golf course, let alone a green.
Well, we could probably go into a little bit of depth on why that is. So there's a question we ask every single client we see prior to getting started on their journey with them. So it's a question we ask during the assessment. And the question that we ask is, on a mechanical level, what would you say separates your good shots versus your bad shots? Or you could take it a step further and say, what would you say separates a highly consistent swing producing preferred results versus a less consistent swing producing less preferred results less often? What would be your answer? And it's got to be mechanics. You can't talk like, oh, emotions, sports psychology, etc. What would you say separates that?
Are you asking me? I obviously know the answer.
Yeah.
So here, hold on.
Go ahead.
Just because I know you're going to say this, we hear every single thing. We hear, oh, maybe your face is too open or closed. Maybe your path is too far and out. Maybe you hit behind it. Maybe you hit in front of it. Maybe whatever.
All those are right.
They are right.
Right. And can you technically do that? All of those?
You could.
With the same swing?
You could do all of them. Absolutely. I mean, I tell this to everybody, like, how many times have you had a complete beginner never touched a club before, and they're just out screwing around with you at the range, and they hit one really, really, really good shot, and their swing has definitely not gotten better for that one swing. It looks exactly the same. What I like to do during assessments is pull up, like their best shot and their worst shot side by side, and I stop it right before impact. And I'm like, all right, which one is the good? They're like, they're the same swing. I'm like, all right, well, this one you hit into the wall, and this one you hit 170 yards with a 7-iron right down.
Wait, what? So you're telling me that the good and bad shots are almost identical mechanically?
Oh, they're very, very identical mechanically.
All right, so then what is the difference? Well, I'll tell you. What we like to blanket is the answer here. It's timing, guys. It's just timing. It's funny how you'll get guys go out there, they'll hit 4 good shots in a row on the range, and then obviously follow up by the sloppy one and be like, well, what the heck did I just do different? Or vice versa, they're hitting a bunch badly, and then all of a sudden connect with one that's like, wow, that's the swing. That's the one I want to go to the golf course with. Same thing on the golf course, 4 or 5 good holes in a row, 3 good holes in a row, whatever it may be, only to be followed by a snap puck. Gosh darn it, I have like 5 or 6 different golf swings. I'll be honest, I was guilty of that. I thought it was the same thing. Until, after a little bit further research, especially with today's day and age of technology, when we can measure the biomechanics and you've got high-speed video. What's crazy is, like you gave an example, you can put 2 swings side by side and even ask the student, hey, point out the difference to me from these
I love
swings.
when they start looking for stuff.
Oh, they'll always look for something.
Maybe I think my knees are a little more bent there. I'm like,
and know that they are already aware that one of these produced a good shot and the other one produced a poor shot. So they are trying to figure out what was the difference. Well, what you come to find out when you look at the biomechanics and you look at their kinematic sequence and you look how they rotate and you look how they move the ball, the difference between the good and the bad shot is minute. It is very, very, very small. Not enough to where you could substantially say, hey, since you rotated 1 extra degree on your hip turn here, that's what we need to continue to produce. That's unrealistic. It's not going to happen.
Ironically, those margins are that small for the club. But I mean,
they can be, but you get the idea.
I do get the idea.
What we try to get the student to understand, what we'll do is we'll take that explanation a step further, and we'll just give them kind of an analogy of how we view the golf swing. And, it's not perfect, but we'll say, hey, we look at the golf swing kind of like a math equation of variables in which equals timing. Timing, we'll just say the moment the club strikes the ball. Where a tour player might have an equation that looks like A plus B plus C plus D equals timing. It's very straightforward, very few variables, very easy to solve. Whereas you look at a higher handicapper's golf swing, it could be A plus B plus C plus D plus E plus F plus whatever other compensation they have equals timing. And I think it's important to note that you can still solve it. Those are your good shots. It's just a heck of a lot harder to solve, right? So then there begs the question, all right, then what's our goal here, right? What's the goal? Well, it's to make your timing equation easier to solve. So let's develop the variables we know that are complementary and will contribute to a consistent golf swing that produces preferred results, and get rid of all of the extra variables, also known as
swing characteristics
or compensations, right? And then we'll take it a step further and we'll give them a visual. So we'll physically demonstrate with our club in our hand, and we'll say, hey, listen, so let's look at the first move off the ball. Let's just call it the takeaway, right? And we'll say, hey, there's 5 variables. We've got our torso, our arms, our hands, our club, and our lower body. And then we'll show them one way to move the club off the ball. We'll do the stereotypical one-piece takeaway where, hands aren't doing a whole lot, club's moving straight back, and arms, torso, hands, club kind of work as this cohesive unit. And we'll ask, hey, what are our hands doing? They're like, not much. I'm like, all right, cool. Can I make the argument that these 5 variables are working as one? And they'll go, sure. And then we'll give them an alternative way to move the club off the ball. And we'll we'll rotate the club face open, rotate our hands. We'll whip it inside. We'll disconnect our arms. We'll rotate our hips. And we'll show a demonstration of 5 variables working independently. And ironic enough, we actually see that all the time, especially on newcomers to the game, because although it's much more complicated, it's actually physically a lot easier. It's a lot less laborsome, which is another conversation we can have here shortly, which is the origin behind most swing flaws. Anyhow, so then we'll fast forward and we'll say, hey, let's just fast forward. If I'm compensated here, do you think I increase the likelihood of being compensated later in the pattern? And it's maybe, not guaranteed. But if you get the club into delivery position, we define that as when the club is parallel right before strike. There's only so many positions that can be in, right? You can either be on plane, defined as swinging towards the intended target with a square open or closed club face. You can be above it, aka swinging left, square open or closed, or below it, square open or closed. And we ask them, if you were trying to be as consistent with your timing as possible, which one would you probably choose? Well, I think the obvious answer is the one that's closest to playing as square as possible, so it requires the least amount of last second manipulation to the hitting zone. And that's where the cliche, call it over the top, swinging left, open club face, where the guy has to throw the club, stand up out of posture, stop rotating, turn a 6-iron into an 8-iron, with all this last second manipulation when the club's traveling the fastest. Yeah, it can hit good shots. You'll never hit it as far as you're capable. It'll be a hell of a lot harder. And when you're under pressure, you'll get exposed. And that's why you're also the guy that's volatile like crazy. You can go out one day and shoot, call it 80, and then follow it by the 95 and wondering what the hell's going on. It's like, your swing didn't vary that much. You might have felt different. You might have, had a better sleep or whatnot. There's so many different things that can affect your timing. The temperature can. Which then makes me want to go into what I challenge people to kind of dive a little bit deeper into with their thought is, what would you say the origin is behind most swing flaws, right? And of course there's concept. People just think that's what they're supposed to do. But at the end of the day, I'll tell you this is the origin. It's the attempt to feel powerful, hit the ball far, while taking the path of least resistance, right? No one's going to pick up a golf club for the first time and say, hey, how soft can I hit this? No, it's how hard can I hit this, and what does my body do easiest? And that's where the fitness screen and having a trainer and addressing your body as an athlete is so crucial to trying to reach your potential.
100%. I mean, there are a lot of guys that literally can't do the things that they need to do, should do, to swing the golf club how they think they should be swinging it. So that's another reason why just finding YouTube videos doesn't always work.
100%.
If you can't physically move your arm this way, then that's not really going to work if you find it on YouTube.
No can do.
A big thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Everything But the Tip podcast. Stay connected with us on all social media platforms by following @SmartGolfFitness. For additional episodes, updates, and exclusive content, check out our website at smartgolffitness.com. Don't forget to show some love, like, share, and subscribe to ensure you never miss out on the latest insights and engaging discussions. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, keep swinging and stay fit.